You look like you're staring into the future. Excuse me, you can try to not pay attention, but it is you that I'm talking to. Yes, I know the water's beautiful and we're all probably down here by the water for the same reason, but I'm the nurse the doula to one of the new families that just came here to Epidaurus, and you look like you could use some help. Well, after all, what do people come to Asclepions for but for help? Let me take a look at you. I figure you're probably a doula too. And, yep. Well, I'm not saying we slaves have to stick together, but have you been inside the temple? It's quite, the statues are, I see you changing the subject, the statues are picturesque, yes. There's a lot of snakes in there, though. I don't know if have you been to many Asclepions before? Well, snakes are a pretty typical part of what you see. I don't really like them myself, so I've been trying to stay out here as much as possible while my master gets assistance and attention from the priests. They're hoping that this time it'll be different somehow than it was every other time before. We've been traveling. We've been to a lot of Asclepions over. I am Spartan, actually. I have heard that before, that I'm not people's typical Spartan. My master was also very disappointed because, as you know, Spartan nurses are, well, highly sought after in the slave trade, and I guess I was a disappointment, but because I haven't been able to cure even the gods haven't been able to cure this man. So, but I am quite good at magnetic treatment and rubbing, laying on of hands, and at the very least, I'd like to you have marks all over your face. That leg does not look straight or bending exactly the right way. I see that it's not bleeding. Is it okay if I can? I'll just let me, over here on your face, just let me take a little look here. I do have my magnet. I do have it. So, that was a little bit of a sleight of hand there. Didn't expect me to reach over there for it. So, I'm going to apply this and rub it over the parts of your face that have the dark bruises. What happened? Well, even if you don't want to tell me, and I don't see why you should have, I understand there may be a source of shame, but like I said, we doulos have to stick together a little bit. Well, I didn't say that because I'm not trying to inspire a revolt. But, I am well fed. That is true. It does seem that your master is a little bit less than generous. Yes. the laying on of hands, I will do the technique that I learned in Athens. So you've been looking outside at the edges of the temple. You haven't gone inside yet. Oh, your master's inside and you're not looking to attention right now. Is yours the one with the huge entourage? Oh, so you're supposed to be out with animals anyway. I see. Yes, mine's the merchant family. I'm going to rub the magnet here on your leg. And perhaps we can reset some things a little bit. Just move things to be where they're supposed to be. I'm going to do that first, and then we'll rub some of the pain away. Can I have you hold your breath for a moment? I know that was uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. But look it straight. Yes. I'm gonna kind of rub the pain away a little bit. I do have a little bit of balm here, actually. Where is my... Oh. I've left a lot of my things inside, but I do have a small vial here in my... in my peplos. And I'll just rub this here, and we'll rub the magnet here, and we'll see what we can do. While the image of Asclepius inside is in size half as big as the Olympian Zeus at Athens, I've seen it is made of ivory and gold, the one inside, not the statue that you had mentioned outside. Asclepius is sitting on a seat grasping a staff, and the other hand is holding above the head of a serpent. There's a figure of a dog lying by his side. That's why you also see the dogs wandering all around in and out. I don't really like the smell of dogs. I know that's very anti-medicine of me. And of course the priests use the dogs for healing. There have been cases, right, where, I knew a little boy who had a growth and the dog licked it and it went away. I have a sensitive sense of smell. I'm going to give a little more attention to these bruises, and I'd like to just look in. Well, and the snakes are also supposed to lick you as well. The columns are very ornate. There's Doric and Corinthian columns, and they have big displays of bronze medical instruments for surgery. They want the snakes to crawl over you. I've had that happen once, and they're very beautiful creatures, especially the famous yellow ones that are kept in the temples of Asclepius, but I'm a bit scared of them. I'm a bit scared of the gods, I'll admit. Well, to me, the gods are for the wealthy and the free, who can afford sacrifices and pay thanks and pray. Oh, you haven't read? Oh, you can't read. Well, one of the steels, the big rocks that have words written on them, one of them says that there is a blind man who received healing at the temple here, but because he didn't pay, he was cursed with blindness again. So, the gods are for the wealthy and the free. For the doulos, there's me. on the magnet. I find that it's calming while I rub the magnet on your bruises. I think the rubbing helps the blood flow because it heals quicker when you rub the bruises. Gently, of course. No, I'm not talking about revolt. And I'll be going back and forth, attention to your leg, attention to your face. I'm not talking about revolt, my goodness. I know all the treaties between nations include not helping each other's slaves escape and putting down slave revolts. Actually, there's an entire slave class in Sparta that's armed. Well, helots is a soldier class that is owned by the state. It's different than in Athens or in Chios. In Chios, you have a different kind where you have property bought and sold. In Sparta, it's rare for, that's a slave is not bought and sold. A slave is born into a class. Well, what about me? Well, I'm not a helot. Those are all men. It's a long story, but we're all douleia in the end, people without control over ourselves, as opposed to eueletheros, people with control over their decisions. Well, different kinds of slavery in different places, but we're all douleia, so. I have heard the douleia term used even so many poems about wasteful, subversive women making men slaves by kissing them, so they lose control over themselves and their spending habits. That's very Athenian thought. Helen of Troy, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, explained to Menelaus that her following Paris was an act that was forced on her by Aphrodite, the goddess of love. She doesn't have the legal right to choose Paris because she belongs to the household of Menelaus as a woman. And so to avoid, I think there is debate about if she's lying or not. If, they talk about her being captured, kidnapped, or they talk about whatever. But when she talks about it and she says, punish the goddess and show yourself even more mighty than Zeus, who, though he lords it over Kratos, the other gods, is her slave, doulos eikines. Well, she puts Zeus's power over the other gods compared to his slavery to Aphrodite. Well, because he sleeps around a lot. So, doulos is just someone who's under power of someone else, is how I think about the term. Well, just for us in general, as you know, but what I'm trying to explain is that in Sparta, a doula is not andropodon, not a piece of property or physically captured or sold into slavery. That's more like you have in Athens or other places where you might sell yourself or someone might capture you and then you are andropodon. That's not the same as the doula helot situation in Sparta. You are very political. Why don't you have some water, you political person, you? I just like tapping sounds, that's all. Don't look down on me. That's like music with my fingers. so much as people, as a person who can't make her own decisions because of fate, or weakness in battle, or poor financial decisions. And that is why I don't trust the gods, because to them, we're all doulos. And while human domination is fluid, and human-wise, I could one day not be under domination, or even the state of Andropodon could be fluid. The domination under the gods is permanent. I was going to say, when I first found you by the water, you looked almost like you were looking into the future. I'm putting the magnet to the side here. I would like to let me just do your hair. Looks like you've been hit pretty badly. Excuse me, it looks like something happened pretty badly. I know we don't want to talk about it. You dream about the future sometimes. What an imagination. You sound like the, have you ever heard the writer, well, really who writes about a utopia of automatons where there will not be, there won't be any Dulea because the automatons do it all. Most philosophers don't write that way. Most philosophers assume there will always be Dula and Dula people. You imagine a future 200 years ago, or from now. From now, that would be a future. What do you mean 200 years? A philosopher whose name begins with A, arguing that Dula or Dulea shouldn't be about power, but a natural state of man. So in other words, somebody is inherently meant to be Dula their whole life. And they redefine the term of Dula to be property, not just a person under domination. Wow. I don't like this imaginary future person whose name begins with A. How awful. I have a cousin named Aristotle. Don't say such terrible things. I would just hate that philosopher because would I rather be a thing or someone who inherently is destined for Dulea, or just a lowly person under domination who can't make my own decisions? That's a different way of thinking about slavery, and I don't love the current state, but I would prefer this to that. Because with this, there's possibility. What you describe, where it sounds like I would never have a possibility because it would be inherent to me. I hate this. Let's talk about something else. Why don't you put that imagination to something good? Oh, me. My master visits many temples for healing. We were previously in Kos. I don't usually go inside, but that's where I had the snake crawl on me. And I met a family of Asclepiads there. A little boy, Hippocrates, about 10, who was very cute. And, well, a number of other... I didn't pay much attention to the rest of the family, but the little boy was very cute. Yes, more magnet rubbing here. no, that's not how it works. You haven't been to many of these, have you? Well, the surgeon was the priest. Or sorry, not the priest. There's the surgeon. That's what you said. You said it was wrong, so I'm correcting you. And you're just making me flustered a little bit. So there's a double set of officers, basically. There's the priest, the neocor, and so forth, and then the surgeon and his assistants, who are the sons of the god. That's the Asclepiads. It's like a clan where medical knowledge is handed from father to son. They're descended from Asclepius. Well, so that's a good question. Yes. I don't know that I see much distinction between a human and a god. It's just a more powerful human, for the most part. Now, when we're talking about the Titans, we're talking about something else. But, of course, they could be descended because he would have had the same form. Well, this is almost the last chance for my master. This is the birthplace of Asclepius, the healer, and there are many, many, many records here. Well, you look at them, all the testimonies on the stones all around us. Well, actually, in Tithoria and in Kentrii, and Buhai, Serapis and Isis there shared a temple with Asclepius. But in Tithoria and Kentrii, the temples of Isis and Asclepius were close together. So I guess you could say there's Egyptian. I hadn't thought about it like that, but yes. Actually, in Tesia, when we were there, I saw that a priest of Asclepius had dedicated a tablet to Serapis, the Egyptian. So, the general type of Asclepius and Serapis is the same. Aristides saw them in a vision like each other, wonderfully like each other. I didn't like Athens very much. It's a beautiful city. The graffiti was less so. Well, when you go to the Agora, because it's a people where the landowners of the city can vote on what happens, or vote to expel somebody from the city even. What people think of you is very important, and they will write all over the walls of the marketplace nasty things about the people they don't like, and it's especially nasty about the women. It's things that in Sparta I don't think, well, it's been a long time since I lived there, but I just can't imagine that being tolerated. It's mostly slander related to who is sleeping with whom. Well, and then in the comedy plays, no one is safe either, so great women of the city who have offended a man are generally, well, they're generally called, well, you know, the educated women who are brought to parties to sleep with the, they call them heterai. I can't pronounce things when I'm nervous. It's awful. It's awful. I don't like it. We're a little different in Sparta, but not very different. the men are not very different. But in Athens, slander is very important, and the truth doesn't matter so much. What matters is the story that's told because of the ostraca. You're not Athenian, I can see the ostraca. Well, if they want to kick you out of the city, they write your name on 6,000 black shells. And then, oh, excuse me. Over here, the side of you. Well, and then they can put you out of the city. You do keep still your voting rights, if you had them to begin with, and your property, but you can't live in the city. This is all, of course, for the wealthy. Voting is not for Dulea. Or women. I suppose this mob voting, for someone from Sparta, it seems very anarchist. Oh, this. I shouldn't have it on. It's technically stolen. Here, I'll put it away. I was out by the water by myself, and it's an opportunity to wear it. I'm hoping to sell it. Well, I know you won't tell. That's why I'm not afraid to tell you. You are the kind of person who doesn't tell things, as I can see from your injuries. It just... having all of the people, or so many of the people, make decisions about what happens to a person, rather than having it done by the wise. Well, for example, I know a story where Aristides was a man from Athens. He was at, he was at a gathering where they were writing all their names of the people they didn't like on these black shells. And some ignorant boor who couldn't write approached him and said, what did he say? Well, let me just look at your leg again here differently. I just want to make sure that we don't have problems. Oh, what did he say? Oh, so this ignorant person couldn't write, and he approached Aristides not knowing who he was. And he said to him, "Can you please write Aristides for me on this black shell?" And Aristides said, "But why? What has he done to you that you want him kicked out of the city?" And he said, "He's done nothing to me. I don't even know the man, but I'm so tired of hearing him called the just everywhere." And Aristides was eventually kicked out of the city. His political opponents were able to move the mob. And to me, it just... well, I mean, I'm sure you can understand. It just sounds like mob rule to me. Why am I smiling so much? Because I'm nervous. Are you stupid? Of course, that's why I'm smiling so much. I don't know you, and you're very injured. Oh, do you have to get back to your master is going to be sleeping soon. My master is also here for incubation. Well, I've heard some stories in some of the temples where the god enters the person's dreams and tells them how to be healed, and other stories where they're healed by him in the dream. No, I wouldn't. If you want to go inside, that's fine, but I don't like it in there. The smell of blood all over the floor, and it even when they wash it out, the bloodstains stay all over the floor. And the dogs and the smells of the sacrifices, although that's a nice smell, because meat, the other smells are not great. And the waste from the snakes and the dogs, it's a lot. Oh, what happened with Aristides? Well, he did write his name on there for the man, made no answer, and he handed it back. He always wanted to help his fellow man, even if his fellow man was against him. And maybe he was just too shocked, couldn't say anything. He might have just been surprised. I'm going to move these beads that you have on you here to the side, if that's okay. Well, when he left the city, he lifted up his hands over it to heaven and prayed a prayer that, opposite of Achilles, of course, that no crisis might overtake the Athenians, which should compel the people to remember him. He was a very forgiving person. But anyway, I liked Kos better. The Asclepiads there were a little bit different, and I liked them. So, one benefit of Athens is it's harder to get hit by a stranger as a slave. Well, why? Because in Athens, it is pretty prosperous economically. You think that's because of the voting, the mob rule? I don't know. Instead of wealth being managed or distributed by full control by a few people at the top, I don't know. It's just a bigger mob of wealthy people versus a few wealthy people who might be wise. Well, you are the kind of person who would talk about revolts. I see. I'm sorry. But you do get hit less there. Because with the economic, things are good, money-wise. So the slaves all dress in a way that looks pretty much the same as a citizen. It is in fashion for citizens not to overdress. And that means that, well, they're travelers. My master complained when we were there that it's so dangerous to hit a slave in Athens because you'd never know if they don't actually belong to somebody, if it's actually an Athenian citizen, and that you'll be in trouble. So, some people find that stressful, but of course, I kept my mouth shut. Scared me. I dropped it on my foot, not yours, so it should be okay. It's just a little, just makes my heart pound. I don't like dropping things because that's a way to get in trouble. No, my master's never ever hit me. A nurse is valuable. But the mistress she doesn't have a very strong hand, but her voice is very strong. Do the treatments inside work? I suppose you could go try if you want. What I cannot do for you that they can do for you is the dream and cutting you open. But I have seen injuries like this before. If it is closed, this one on your leg that I know you remember because it was painful, that we have said here. If it's closed, it's best not to open it again. Although if someone has a terrible headache, they might open there. Do you have a headache and need your brain opened? No? Okay. Well, the most famous treatments are not the cutting treatments. One entry reads, Errata, a Spartan suffering from dropsy. Her mother, the Errata was so ill that she had to stay at home in Sparta, and her mother came and slept here on her behalf. And in her dream, she dreamed of the god coming and cutting her daughter's head off and turning her upside down so that all the water flowed out of her. And then when she got home, the daughter was cured. Yes. He put the head back on at the end, yes. Or the war veteran, Eupos. You have so many of these. It's going to take a while to tend to everything. I'm surprised you're not bleeding. Oh, you had already washed the blood off of your face by the water, I see. You want to hear about Eupos? Well, he had a spearhead lodged in his jaw for 6 years. Your poor leg. After a dream of Epidaurus, he awoke with his injury healed and a spearhead in his hand. Now that one was most likely from cutting, most likely while he was asleep. Because it's normal for the sons of the god to come and do that. They probably cut it out. Many of the cures are surgery. That's another reason I don't like going inside. I've seen the cure for an ulcer, for example, cutting it out. I've seen the surgeon hold the person down to cut pieces out of them, and the floor covered with blood. Shrunken eyelids will be to pour a drug in. Yes. I did hear of a soldier whose eyesight was destroyed by a spear, who it had been lodged in his face for years, and they did cut it out and he could see, which was really neat. I thought that was wonderful. So, and one of the places I saw, well, I didn't see the surgery, but I saw the person go in and come out. They had a spear lodged in their lung. I heard a story about one man who had no eyeballs at all, and they poured drugs into the sockets, and then he had eyes. That I've never seen. I've heard that story, though. Well, I've heard the story. The drugs, the herbs, I actually think that many nurses can do better. Many of us have our own favorite herbs and foods that we recommend. Although if there really is a drug so wonderful that it gives you eyeballs when you have none. There's a preparation cure for baldness that makes you vomit a lot. I've never seen it make the hair grow back. So, well, many doulas are bought to take care of the family at large. And Many work outside the home too, like myself. I think that's why it bothers me so much when your idea or your dream about futures where all doulea are property only, because even a doula who's purchased it's like paying off a debt. It's like if you have enough money, then you were only put in the situation of dominance or under someone's dominance due to weakness. But weakness can be overcome. And I work very hard on my weaknesses, like my financial weakness, and the idea that all that work could be for nothing and this would be an inherent state, just natural to my being. I know it's fluid and complicated, like you're saying, and from traveling with my master, I've seen that doulea is different in different parts of Greece. Which is why I am glad I'm not a helot, because that is an inherent state. And being the kind of property like an abonador is Yes. So I'm somewhere between. In my family, I'm somewhere between something that's bought and a skilled worker. That's what it's like being a doula. What's it like being a animal caretaker? Doula, your kind of doula. Being a nurse doula is what I said. Being you, your doula. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I see. Yes. Well, the daughters of Asclepius are famous. Macaon and, well, Baudelairios and Yasso, Agli, Panacea, Hygeia, all glorious undefiled. It's interesting that you say that, because talking about the children of the god and then their descendants and their descendants, I wonder when you become that. Well, the reason it's interesting is because Lady Alexandra used to have a Hebrew slave, and they don't have that. They don't have a god or gods that can have this same kind of like the same kind of biological descendants. What do I mean by biological? I mean by, well, bios, life. Well, theirs is, we have many gods with many names. The Hebrew had one with many names. And it's more like a progenitor being. Not a god like a person like Asclepius, but something outside of all things. Which is very scary to me, very big and very far away. Well, this Hebrew was from a province in Persia. Well, I don't remember if it was a province in Persia or in Babylon. they told me a story because we were talking about the snakes in one of the temples, and they told me a story where the people of the Hebrews had angered their God, and they had diseases, and they were all dying of a plague. And their person, I can't pronounce their prophet's name. I say Moses, but they, I think, pronounce it without an ending letter, which is very strange. And there's a sound that they make that is like the sound of telling one to quiet, like a shush. Very difficult sound to make. And they pronounce it like that. So, but to me, it sounded like Moses. So, that person put up a pole and impaled a bronze serpent, and everyone who looked at the bronze serpent was healed. So, one of the names of their god is El-Rafi, the healer. But it's one that does all the things, instead of having one God who rules the afterlife and one God who punishes, one God who heals. The same one does all the things. They also have a story where something like a snake causes mankind to, well, you know the story of Pandora's box, where Zeus hates people. So Zeus gives woman Pandora's box and tempts her to open it. And she opens it, and it's terrible. And that is where evil comes from. They have a story where there's a tree, and the snake tells the woman to eat the tree, and she's not supposed to, and she does, and that poisons all of mankind. That's how death goes into our bloodline. So they have the snake be both the healer and the bad one, whereas for us it's a little more black and white. Snakes are good. The end. When it comes to healing, I think. That's my understanding anyway. Your poor leg. It's interesting that I thought it was strange. And the Hebrew tried to explain something to me about the future. You being a future dreamer, maybe understand. But they were saying there's something about the snake tempting and looking at the impaled snake healing, and that has to do with the future of mankind or something. I don't know. I didn't understand it. But their God gives healing knowledge directly. Or their leader God, anyway, since it's one that does everything. Versus, as you know, for us, healing knowledge was stolen. Zeus hates medicine, and, he killed Asclepius because Asclepius resurrected Glaucus, son of Minos. Some say it was Hippolytus who was resurrected. I don't know all the stories perfectly. And so Zeus struck him down with the thunderbolt. And because of this, Apollo, who's Asclepius' father, because he could not harm Zeus, instead killed the makers of the thunderbolt, that is, the Cyclops. And in return, he was made a slave to the king of Thebes. He was made doulo, under domination. for a time to pay off his crime. But he was not property. Well, so Zeus, they don't have a god like that who hates healing and for whom healing is bad. In fact, they have prayers about their god being a resurrector, which is a very strange thing. I cannot pray to Zeus, because why would I pray to something that hates us and doesn't like us to begin with? And I can't pray to Asclepius because I know that Zeus can't see everything, but the sky can, and thunderbolts can, and I don't really see what's changed. He could see. It was like Prometheus, who created mankind, who was a titan. Of course, he pre-existed Zeus. And Zeus hates us. I say Zeus hates us. Well, I say this because also, well, he takes whichever of us that he pleases. This is not love. It's under Aphrodite, but maybe Aphrodite hates us too. Because many people in the name of Aphrodite many men will cause grave harm to many women, and many men will cause grave harm to many men. Like Zeus. Zeus was known to do both in the name of Aphrodite. I don't think that this is love, and we know that he does not love us because he tried to destroy us with Pandora's box, and then he tried to destroy us with a flood. And in Prometheus, rescued a family from the flood. It's interesting, the Hebrews also talk about the flood. They know the flood. But they say their God both sent the flood and rescued from the flood. Just it's much easier to imagine two gods in opposition than one God that wants to protect his world from humans, but also loves humans. It's easier to be either against humans or for humans. It's a little bit confusing. Well, and of course, Prometheus brought us fire, and suffered as a result. Well, no, that's incorrect. Zeus caught him, and he was stretched out on a mountaintop, and his liver was eaten eternally by an eagle. That's an interesting interpretation. So you're saying that, well, so I know Zeus was born from tragedy and child sacrifice, as Kronos' time eats Zeus's brothers and sisters, who all represent different virtues or lordships over different parts of the world or nature. So his birth from tragedy Well, you're saying that just as time eats the good and the bad alike, and eats virtues and enemies alike, and eats all the powers over things, also from time and tragedy are born things like lust and rage and power, uncontrolled power itself, and hypocrisy, the hypocritical immorality ruling over humanity. So you're saying, in some ways, Zeus, being born of that, is our injustice, the thing we are most doulo to, the chaotic thing that claims to own fire, when Prometheus was older than him. So how does Zeus have the right to claim fire? Zeus being the thing that brings the flood, that goads us to open Pandora's box, our accuser and our guiding demon. What an interesting, you are very poetic. I'm just repeating the same words as you so that I don't forget them, because I have to think about them at another time. Well, because even the freest Eleutheros is a doulo to something. And we are all doulo under those things, you're right, under those things that make up that nature. So it seems to me that doulos need a god who is completely free, unlike Zeus, who is a doulo to himself, or to Aphrodite in some ways, and Aphrodite being under him as well. So they're all enslaved in some way, or he represents a slavery, a domination. Not a pleasant domination either. Uncontrolled domination. Untempered by concern. A Zeus without Prometheus. So we need someone who is free, but so someone like Prometheus, who becomes dominated over at our level to shield us under the weight of our Zeus, but we need one who can then rise away from the eagle on his own, not just accept his fate and then suffer and then get up at the hands of so-and-so and then leave. It needs to be someone who, well, the Titans want to take Olympus, and maybe it needs to be a Prometheus who can take Olympus. That's what we need. That's the kind of God we need. Those of us who are doulo. Because the wealthy can please the gods like Zeus easily. And they have the money to protect themselves from the rage and the lust and the judgment and hypocrisy. I don't know. So an unknown God is what we need. I saw an altar in Athens, a very old one, to an unknown God. Well, here's a drink to the God we don't know, the unknown God. Will you drink with me? I'm about done with you. You drink, and I will also drink. This water smells a little strange. I have a very sensitive smell, that's all. Sensitive sense of smell. Maybe we can sleep, and maybe you can be healed. Maybe the God we don't know could enter our dreams. I'm sure our masters are already asleep. Why don't we sleep here under the tree? Well, outside of the temple, because we are outsiders anyway, unknown is terrifying, but maybe it's better than what we have.